Welcome back to the Self-Care Zone podcast. Today we're having a discussion that's long overdue, one that every business leader, manager, or decision maker needs to hear. This episode is called The Hidden Cost of Burnout, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We're diving into the real financial, human, and organisational impact of ignoring psychosocial well-being in the workplace. And if you're in a position of leadership, I need you to lean in here, because what we're talking about isn't just affecting your bottom line, it's affecting real human lives. Let's start with some numbers that might make you uncomfortable. Safe Work Australia estimates that psychological injuries cost Australian businesses over $6 billion annually. Not millions, billions. And that figure, it only accounts for what's reported and compensated. The real cost is exponentially higher when you factor in what's hidden. Presenteeism, quiet quitting, the gradual erosion of productivity that happens when your people are running on empty. But here's what really gets me. We've spent decades getting serious about physical safety in workplaces, hard hats on construction sites, ergonomic workstations, manual handling training. And rightly so. Those things save lives and prevent injuries. So why are we still treating psychological well-being like it's a nice to have, like it's a perk instead of a fundamental necessity? Let's break down what burnout actually costs your organization, because I think when you really understand the scope of this, it becomes impossible to ignore. First, there's turnover. When someone leaves due to burnout, and make no mistake, that's what's behind a huge percentage of resignations. You're looking at the cost that typically ranges between 50 and 200% of their annual salary to replace them. Think about that. If you're losing mid-level employees earning $80,000 or $100,000 a year, you're potentially spending $160,000 or more per person to recruit, onboard, and train their replacement. And that's before we even talk about the institutional knowledge that walks out the door with them. And then there's absenteeism. Burnt out employees take significantly more sick leave. Research shows they're taking anywhere from 30 to 60% more sick days than their colleagues who aren't experiencing burnout. And let's be honest, when someone's burnt out, they're often calling in sick because they literally cannot face another day, not because they've got the flu. But here's where it gets really interesting. Presenteeism. This is when people show up to work, but they're not actually functioning at capacity. They're physically present, but mentally they're checked out. And studies show that presenteeism costs organizations more than absenteeism does. Your burnt out employees are sitting at their desks, attending meetings, responding to emails, but they're operating at maybe 50 or 60% capacity. They're making mistakes that need correcting. They're missing details. They're not innovating or problem solving effectively. And you're paying them a full salary for a partial output. Now let's talk about the productivity paradox, because this is where a lot of leaders get it wrong. There's this persistent belief that if we push people harder, demand longer hours, pile on more projects, we'll get more output. But the research tells us the exact opposite is true. Beyond a certain threshold, more input does not equal more output. It equals burnout, mistakes, and declining performance. A study from Stanford University found that productivity per hour declines sharply when the work week exceeds 50 hours and drops off so much after 55 hours that there's no point in working anymore. You're not getting more value. You're just burning people out and getting the same output you would have gotten in less time. Think about what that means. If you've got teams regularly working 60 or 70-hour weeks, you're not being efficient. You're being wasteful with your most valuable resource, which is your people's capacity and well-being. Burnout doesn't exist in a vacuum. When one team member is burnt out, it affects everyone around them. Their colleagues end up picking up the slack, which increases their workload and stress. Team morale suffers because everyone can see that someone's struggling. And if the organisation isn't responding, they're all taking notes on what happens when they hit their limit. Innovation dies. Creative problem solving requires mental space and energy. But burnt out teams aren't innovating. They're surviving. They're doing the minimum to get through the day, not thinking about how to improve processes or develop new solutions. Customer service quality drops. Whether your people are client-facing or not, burnout affects how they show up in every interaction. Short tempers, lack of patience, reduced attention to detail. Your clients and customers feel this, even if they can't name what's changed. Now I want to address something that I hear a lot from business leaders, and it goes something like this. We can't afford to slow down. The market's competitive. We need to stay lean. We need everyone giving 110%. I get it. Business is competitive. Margins are tight. There's pressure from shareholders, from boards, from market conditions, from community services funding bodies. But here's what I need you to hear. You can't afford to not address this. Let's flip the script and talk about what happens when organisations actually invest in psychological well-being, because the data here is compelling. Companies with strong well-being programs see reduced costs, lower turnover rates, decreased absenteeism, and increased productivity. We're talking about measurable improvements. 25% reduction in sick leave, 32% reduction in workers' compensation claims, and productivity improvements that can add up to thousands per employee annually. But it goes beyond just the numbers. Organisations that prioritise psychological well-being see higher employee engagement, stronger company culture, better talent attraction and retention, and improved innovation. These things might be harder to put a dollar figure on, but they're absolutely crucial to long-term success. So what does protecting psychological well-being actually look like? Because it's not about putting a pool table in the break room or offering free fruit. Those things are nice, but they're window dressings. Real psychological well-being starts with workload management. Are your people's workloads realistic? Can they actually complete their work in reasonable hours, or are you systematically expecting them to go beyond their contracted hours? It means clear expectations and role clarity. Does everyone know what's expected of them? Are priorities clear, or are your people constantly pivoting between competing urgent agendas? It includes autonomy and control. Do your employees have some say in how they do their work, or are they micromanaged to the point of feeling like robots? Research consistently shows that a lack of control in one of these is the biggest predictors of workplace stress and burnout. Psychological safety matters enormously. Can people speak up about problems without fear of retribution? Can they admit mistakes? Can they say, I'm struggling, without worrying it'll be used against them in the next performance review? And here's a big one: boundaries. Are you respecting people's time outside of work? Or is there this unspoken expectation that you're always available? that emails sent at 10 p.m. need responses, that weekends are fair game. Here's something I see all the time, and it's worth calling out. Many leaders don't realize the culture they're creating because they themselves are burnt out. If you're regularly working 60-hour weeks, answering emails at midnight, skipping holidays, that becomes the standard you're setting. Even if you say, I don't expect this from my team, your behavior speaks louder than your words. Your people are watching you. When you don't take breaks, they don't take breaks. When you work while you're sick, they work while they're sick. When you respond to emails on Saturday afternoon, they feel the pressure to do the same. Leadership isn't just about what you say, it's about what you model. And if you're modeling burnout, you're creating a burnout culture. I want to share something that really brings this home. I spoke with a business owner recently who told me about losing one of his best employees. This person has been with the company for 8 years, was exceptionally skilled, and seemed committed to the organization. She handed in her resignation, and when he asked why, she said something he wasn't expecting. I can't keep living like this. I haven't had dinner with my family before 8 p.m. in 6 months. I missed my kids' school concert because of a meeting that could have been an email. I'm exhausted all the time, and I don't recognize myself anymore. He told me that conversation changed how he looked at his entire business because he thought everything was fine. Productivity was good, targets were being met, but he hadn't looked at what it was costing his people to deliver those results. After she left, he started really paying attention. He noticed the dark circles under people's eyes, the way they'd go quiet in meetings, the increased sick leave, the declining quality of work. It had been happening gradually, and he'd missed it. That one resignation cost him not just the financial expense of replacing her, but the wake-up call that his entire organizational culture needed to change. So if you're listening to this and recognizing that your organization has a problem or might be heading towards one, what can you actually do? Start with honest assessment. Survey your people anonymously about their workload, stress levels, and psychological safety. And when they tell you the truth, don't get defensive. Listen. Audit your workload distribution. Are some people constantly overworked while others have capacity? Are deadlines realistic? Are you creating unnecessary urgency? Look at your policies around flexibility and boundaries. Do people actually feel they can use their leave entitlements? What message does that send when someone books a holiday? Train your managers. Most people get promoted into management because they're good at their technical job, not because they're good at supporting people. Invest in training that helps managers spot burnout signals, have supportive conversations, and create psychologically safe teams. Model healthy behavior. Take your breaks. Use your leave. Don't send emails outside of work, or if you do, use delay to send. Talk openly about the importance of rest and recovery. Create clear escalation pathways. What should someone do if they're struggling? Who can they talk to? What support is available? Make this information easily accessible and regularly communicated. Implement regular check-ins, not just about project progress, but about how people are actually doing. Create space for honest conversations about workload and well-being. Review performance metrics. If you're only measuring output without considering sustainability, you're incentivizing burnout. Think about what you're actually rewarding and whether it's sustainable long term. Beyond the business case, there's an ethical one. As a leader, You have a duty of care to the people who work for you. These are real humans with families, hopes, health, and lives outside of work. When you ignore burnout, you're not just affecting their work performance, you're affecting their physical health, their mental health, their relationships, and their quality of life. People spend the majority of their waking hours at work. You have significant influence over their well-being. That's not a responsibility to take lightly. Being a psychologically healthy workplace isn't a quick fix. It's not something you can implement with one policy change or one wellness program. It requires ongoing commitment, regular reassessment, and genuine culture change. But here's what I know. Organizations that invest in this work don't just survive, they thrive. They attract and retain top talent. They innovate. They weather difficult periods because their people have reserves to draw on. They build loyalty that goes both ways. And most importantly, they create environments where people can do meaningful work without sacrificing their health and well-being in the process. Look, I get that this episode might have been uncomfortable for some listeners. If you're in leadership and you're recognizing things in your organization that need to change, that discomfort is valuable. That's your conscience telling you that something matters here. The question is, what are you going to do with that information? Because here's the thing. Every single day you delay taking action on psychological well-being in your workplace, someone in your organization is suffering. They're pushing through chronic exhaustion. They're sacrificing time with loved ones. They're damaging their health. They're losing themselves to work that should never cost that much. The hidden cost of burnout isn't hidden at all when you actually look. It's in your turnover numbers, your sick leave data, your productivity metrics, your company culture. It's written on the faces of your exhausted employees. It's in the talent that you can't attract and the people you can't retain. But more than any of that, it's in the human cost, the marriages that strain, the mental health that deteriorates, the physical health problems that develop, the lives that become small and joyless because work takes everything. You have the power to change that. Not completely. You can't control everything, but you can control the culture that you create, the expectations that you set, the behavior that you model, and the support that you provide. So here's my challenge to every business leader listening. This week, have one honest conversation. Pick one person in your team and ask them genuinely, how are they doing? Not how's the project doing? How are they doing? And then actually listen to that answer. Look at your own behavior. What are you modeling? Are you modeling culture that you want to create? If anyone worked the way you worked, would that be sustainable? Review one policy or practice that might be contributing to burnout. Maybe it's your expectations around email response times, or how you schedule meetings, or how you allocate workload. And if you're ready to take this seriously, if you're recognizing that your organization needs structured support to protect your team's psychological well-being, I want to tell you about something that might help. I've developed workplace well-being programs specifically designed for organizations that are serious about creating sustainable, psychologically safe workplaces. These aren't generic wellness programs. They're tailored to meet work health and safety compliance obligations around psychosocial hazards while actually building resilient, engaged teams. Whether you need a monthly wellbeing session that fits into busy workdays, quarterly workshops that build foundational skills, or a comprehensive partnership that embeds well-being into your leadership and culture, there are options designed to meet you where you are. These programs address the real challenges we've talked about today: workload management, boundary setting, compassion fatigue, decision overwhelm, and building genuine peer support. And they're developed by someone who's been in the trenches, almost 20 years of frontline and leadership experience in community services. So you're getting sector-specific expertise that understands what your people are actually dealing with. If you want to explore what workplace support could look like for your organisation, book a discovery call. No pressure, just a conversation about where you're at and what might actually help. You can reach out at info@theselfcarezone.com or visit theselfcarezone.com. All the details will also be in the show notes. Start somewhere, because doing something is infinitely better than doing nothing. The hidden cost of burnout isn't just a financial problem or an HR problem. It's a leadership problem, and it requires leadership to solve. Your people are your greatest asset, not in a corporate buzzword way, but in a real, tangible way. They're the ones doing the work, serving your customers, driving innovation, and building your organization's future. Protecting their psychological well-being isn't soft or idealistic. It's smart business and basic human decency. Thanks for listening to this episode. If it resonated with you, please share it with the leaders in your network. Change happens when we're willing to have uncomfortable conversations and challenge the status quo. And if you're an employee listening to this, feeling burnt out or wondering if it'll ever change, please know that your well-being matters. You deserve to work in an environment that doesn't cost you your health. Don't be afraid to advocate for yourself and seek help. Take care of yourselves and each other, and I'll see you next week.